Welcome back. This is course 31 of the Code to Vibe Academy. In course 30, you built the safety net. Test-driven vibe coding, unit and integration tests, visual regression with anti-gravity 2.0's built-in browser, and continuous integration wired up to run on every push. So the app works, the tests pass, and it's still running on your laptop. Here's the thing about software that only runs locally. It's not software. At best, it's a demo. Right? Shipping is where the real value lives. A URL someone else can open, an app that keeps running when you close your laptop, infrastructure that scales when traffic spikes. Here's the old way. DevOps was a separate discipline, right? Weeks of Docker file wrestling, continuous integration, continuous development pipelines that needed a specialist, and then cloud configurations you touched once and prayed about because they were so complicated. The vibe coding way is a lot different, right? You describe what you want the infrastructure to do, the agent builds it, you review it the same way you review code. By the end of these 35 minutes, you will be able to containerize an app, build a CI/CD pipeline, deploy it to Railway, and describe your infrastructure as code all conversationally. Let's get into it. Before we containerize anything, a reality check. Shipping software touches services outside of your laptop. You need a few accounts in place first. So set these up before the hands on work begins. Some verify in the background and can take a while. That's why we're doing it up front. The honest part said plainly, you cannot create every account and deploy everything from cold start in one sitting or in the next 30 to 35 minutes. Account signups and billing checks have their own clock, right? So we separate the two. Accounts get set up ahead of time, and then shipping itself goes fast. Okay, the first account that you'll need is GitHub. Most of you most likely already have this account already set up. In this course, it's doing three jobs. Number one, GitHub Actions, that's the runner for your CI/CD pipeline. Repository secrets where credentials live, they never live in code. And then GitHub Container Registry where your Docker images are stored. One account covers all three of these. No separate image registry to sign up for. The second account is a deployment platform. The examples in this course use Railway. There are others you can use like Google Cloud Run and others. You need this in place before we go through the course. A Railway account, sign up with GitHub. This links to two accounts you'll use together. A payment method, if you go past the trial credit, the Hobby plan is $5 a month. Optionally, the Railway CLI also can be installed on your computer. Heads up, account and billing checks can lag, so do this a day early, not 5 minutes before. Account number three is a monitoring service, two small free pieces. The first is Sentry for error tracking. The free tier is plenty to start with, and then an Uptime pinger. We're using Uptime Robot, or you can use something similar to hit the health endpoint of your app every minute. It takes a couple of minutes each to set these accounts up. Here's the one rule that spans all three. Every token, every key, every connection string is a secret. It lives in GitHub secrets, or we're going to use Railway variables instead, right? It never gets committed to the repository on GitHub. We reference secrets by name in every file we write. With those accounts in place, everything in this course is describe, review, and ship. So go get those accounts set up before we go to the next step. Right. Start with the foundation, Docker. Here's the problem Docker solves in one sentence. It works on my machine. Docker makes my machine a portable box that runs anywhere. A Docker container is a self contained unit. Your app, all of its dependencies, its runtime, packaged together so it behaves identically on your laptop on a server in production. Describing a Docker file conversationally. Here's an example. Create a Docker file for the To-Do app. It uses Node.js 24. The app runs on port 3000. Keep the image small. Use a multi-stage build so we do not ship development tools to production. After giving your agent that command, here's what you get back. A Docker file with the right base image, a multi-stage build that separates build from runtime, a Docker ignore that keeps secrets out of the image. Your review checklist for a Docker file is this. Is the base image pinned to a specific version? not just no colon latest that changes under you. Are secrets handled correctly? Environment variables, not hard coded values. Is the final image reasonably sized? Ask the agent, how large is the image? And is there anything we can do to trim it? All right, building and running it locally. Give me the commands to build and run this container and tell me how to verify it's working. The agent walks you through it step by step. You don't have to memorize Docker syntax. You describe the intent and verify the results. Here's the mental model. A container is a shipping container for software. Same contents, same behavior wherever it lands. All right. CI CD, two ideas that almost always travel together. CI or continuous integration. You set this up in the previous course, course 30, right? Every push runs tests and bad code is caught before it merges. And then there's continuous delivery or deployment. Every green build goes further, packaged, staged, and ready to deploy. Continuous deployment takes it all the way to production automatically. Here's the good news with Railway. Railway connects directly to your GitHub repo. It deploys automatically every push. So continuous deployment is built into the connection. No pipeline required just to ship. So when do you still want a pipeline? Well, you want a pipeline when you want tests to gate the deployment, right? Run the suite first and only let green build ship. That is the CI have doing its job before CD runs. Here's an example of how to describe the pipeline. I want a GitHub Actions workflow that does this on every push to the main branch. Run the test suite, and only if tests pass, deploy to Railway. Breaking that down, there's two jobs. Number one, test, run the suite, fail fast on any error. Then the second, deploy, hand off to Railway, Railway up on green. Railway builds the image itself from your Docker file, so there is no separate registry push to manage. So your agent produces a GitHub Actions workflow file with the deploy gate behind the test, with the Railway token referenced as a secret. All right, when it comes time to review a pipeline file, you want to ask, does the deploy depend on the test job passing? Deploy should not start if tests fail, right? Is Railway token pulled from GitHub secrets and never hard coded? If you run your pipeline, is Railway's auto deploy turned off for that branch so you do not deploy twice? Okay, let's talk about a key mindset. You're not memorizing YAML syntax, right? You're describing the policy, what should happen, in what order, and when. The agent handles the mechanics. Now, where does the app actually run? This is a spectrum of options. Platforms like Railway, Render, or Fly, you hand them a repo, they run it. The big clouds like AWS, Google Cloud Platform, or Azure, more power, more knobs, more to manage. For a small app that just needs to be live, a platform wins on simplicity for this course. So why do we choose Railway for this course? Well, it deploys straight from your GitHub repo, right? It builds your Docker file for you, no registry to manage. It provisions a database with one click. It injects the port and connection string for you. Okay, so how do we deploy to Railway? Well, as everything else, you describe it. Deploy this app to Railway from the GitHub repo. It runs on the port Railway provides. It needs the database connection string from Railway's variables. Railway builds and deploys on the next push. You review the build logs and grab the public URL. Here's one gotcha about Railway worth naming. Railway provides the port. Do not hard code it. Your app must listen on process.env.port. Ask the agent. Confirm the app reads port from the environment with a local fallback. All right, here's what you want to confirm before going live. Is the database URL coming from Railway's variables and not hard coded? Does the service restart automatically if it crashes? What is the expected monthly cost at your expected traffic? I highly recommend always asking the cost question. Estimate the monthly cost of this setup, assuming 1,000 active users. The agent gives a ballpark. You decide if that fits your budget or not. All right, here's the advanced move, infrastructure as code. The problem it solves. You click around in a cloud console to set things up. It works, but the config lives nowhere, right? You cannot reproduce it. You cannot version control it. You cannot describe it to a teammate. Infrastructure as code means your infrastructure is described in files. Those files live in your repo. Same version control, same review habits. Reproducible every time. On Railway, this lives in a config file, a railway.json or a railway.toml file committed to your repo. It describes how the app is built and started, the health check, and the restart policy. Same version control, same review habits as your code. Okay, so how do you describe your infrastructure to the agent? Here's an example. Add a railway.json file for this app. Build from the Docker file, run the start command, restart on failure, and use the health endpoint as the health check. Also provision a Postgres database service and expose its connection string as database underscore URL. The agent writes the config and describes the services. Railway reads the file on the next deploy. Here's what you get back after you place a request like that. You get a railway.json describing the build, start, and health, a Postgres service wired to your app, and a database URL referenced by name, never posted in any code. Okay, what do you want to look for when reviewing the config? Does it point at the right Docker file and start command? Is the health check aimed at the health endpoint? Are secrets referenced by name and never hard coded? Okay, at what point do you actually outgrow a platform like Railway? Well, on a raw cloud, AWS, GCP, or Azure, the same idea is done with Terraform or Pulumi. Files in your repo, a planned step before apply. The principle is identical: infrastructure and version control. You do not learn the syntax, you describe what you need. Let the agent write it and read it back in plain English. All right, you shipped your app. Now, how do you know that your app is actually working? Monitoring is the practice of watching a running system in production. Is it up? Is it slow? Is it erroring? You cannot answer those questions by looking at your code. The three things worth monitoring from day one: uptime. Is the app actually responding to requests? Number two, errors. Are requests failing and at what rate? And then latency. How long are requests actually taking? Okay, how do we describe a monitoring setup conversationally? Here's an example. Set up the error tracking for the to-do app. I want to know immediately if an unhandled error occurs in production. Log the error, the request that caused it, and the stack trace. Here are tools that the agent might reach for. Tool example number one is Sentry, an error tracking and performance app. Datadog or New Relic, full observability, or Cloud Native, AWS CloudWatch, GCP Cloud Monitoring, and then Uptime Robot or Better Uptime, simple ping-based uptime to your health endpoint. You don't need to choose the tool first. Recommend a simple, low-cost monitoring setup for a small production app hosted on Railway. I want error alerts and uptime checks. The agent will suggest the right fit for your scale. In this course, we're going to use Sentry and Uptime Robot. Here's one monitoring thing every Vibe coder should set up: a health check endpoint memory. Your monitoring tool pings it every minute. If it stops responding, you get an alert. Now, the layer that makes all of this automatic. In course 14, we covered CLAUDE Code hooks, deterministic triggers that fire before or after specific events. Pre-tool, post-tool, or session start, for example. Hooks and deployment, a powerful combination. You can trigger a deployment check as a post commit hook. You can run a smoke test after each deploy, right? You can send a notification to Slack when a deployment completes. A practical hook for deployment, for example, is create a post tool hook that triggers after any file is written in the source directory. It should run the unit tests. If they fail, show the error summary. Not every code change is followed immediately by a local safety check. All right, here's an example of connecting hooks to the CI/CD pipeline. Add a step to the pipeline that runs a smoke test against the staging URL after every deployment. If the health endpoint does not return 200, alert and roll back. The agent writes the smoke test and the rollback logic. You review the entire chain before it goes live. Here's the principle: manual steps in the deployment process and opportunities for human error. Describe the policy, what should happen, and under what conditions. The agent automates it for you. You review the automation. All right, a word of caution: do not automate production deployments until staging is working perfectly, right? Ship to staging first, verify, then promote. Describe the gate explicitly. Here's an example: do not deploy to production automatically. Require a manual approval step after staging. All right, let's head over to a command window and take the to-do app all the way to production. Okay, here we are in our to-do anti-gravity project, and we're going to start a new Claude session. Okay, we have an app with a database and passing test suite. So now we're going to containerize, pipeline, and ship it. Step one is the Docker file. We're going to tell Claude Code, we're going to give Claude Code a natural language command to create our Docker file. And here's the command that we're going to use. Create a Docker file for the to-do app for use with Railway. Node 24, local fallback on port 3000 with a multi-stage build. So let's go ahead, copy that command. We'll actually, we're going to go to plan mode, and then we're going to give Claude Code our command. So remember, when we're doing things like this, we actually want to see what Claude is going to do before we approve the work. Okay, so we can see Claude Code is requesting our approval to figure out how it's going to do the Postgres migrations that are needed. And we're going to use an entry script. In other words, the Postgres migrations that are needed will run on the entry script for the Docker file. Okay, so let's choose the first action. We'll accept that one. And then what should I create alongside the Docker file? Don't want that. So let's choose Docker ignore. And we also want a Railway.json file. Okay. And then we can submit our answers. Okay, Claude Code is done, and we can see the verification results. Build succeeded, no secrets baked in, run as non-root, port 3000 fallback, migrations applied, full rewrite path, Docker health check, graceful shutdown, and bad database URL. Skips the migration, but still boots. And so the agent wrote the files. We reviewed the files. The base image is pinned. The secrets are clean. And so it built it locally. And we confirmed that it ran successfully. Oh, and we can see the size of the image is 245 megabytes. So that's pretty lean, which is good. We want to connect Railway and gate it with continuous integration. For that, we're going to use this command. Create a GitHub Actions workflow, run the tests on every push, and only deploy to Railway on a green main branch. So we'll give Claude Code that request and let it run. Okay, so as we can see, Claude Code is done. Now our next step, so we made sure that the deploy is gated on tests and push and watch the first run. So we're going to actually say, let's push. We're going to say push for the first run. So first, Claude Code is telling us that we need two variables populated, Railway token and Railway service. We can't push without those. Okay, so we've asked Claude Code about the Railway token and Railway service, and it tells us that in our GitHub repo, in the secrets area, we need to, under the secrets, add a new repository secret. and the name is going to be railway token. And then under variables, we want to add railway service, and the railway service is going to be the name to the new service in railway. Now I'm going to walk through how to actually do this so you can see how it's done. And so we'll open up railway. And then we're going to create a new empty project. And inside of the empty project, we're going to create an empty service. The service is the railway service name that Claude Code is looking for. And you can see it says apply one change, and we're going to deploy. Now, the name of the service is Vibrant Eagerness. I'm going to change that right now from Vibrant Eagerness to do service. Okay. You see it says to do service, and the way you change it is just by clicking on the name here. And then you want to click deploy. Okay. And then when we close that, we should see we have service offline. And the reason it says offline is because we haven't pushed anything to this. And let's actually change this name as well so that we can identify it in Railway. We'll call this to do CI/CD. Okay, and we'll update that. So now our project is to do CI/CD, and our service is to do service. Now, what we want to do is go back to GitHub, and in our GitHub project, we're in our to do anti-gravity repo on GitHub. We want to go to settings, and then we want to go down to secrets and variables. Okay. And under there, you see we have the secrets tab and the variables tab. Now, this maps with what Claude Code is telling us, where we need to add these values. Now, where do you get the Railway token? So in Railway, we go here, and then we go down to tokens. Okay. And we're going to call this the to do token. And we need it for the production environment, which it is. We'll create that token, and it gives us a value. Now I'm going to delete this value upon completing this video, but you want to copy that because you only see it once. Okay. And then what we do is the Railway token, which is what we just created. We say secrets, and then it says click new repository secret. That's where we're going to click. And so we name it Railway token. Make sure the spelling and the capitalization is correct. And you see I typed a plus instead of an underscore. Don't make that mistake. And then in the secret box, you paste your secret, and then you just add the secret. Okay. So there's our new Railway token secret. And then we want to go to variables, and then we want the Railway service. And so under that, we need new repository variable, right? And we want to call this one Railway underscore service. And then in there, we type the name of our service, which we called to do dash service. Okay. And we add that variable. And we can validate that our variable is there. So you want to make sure and check, make sure your spelling is right and the name of the service that you set up in Railway is correct. Now that those are correct, we can go ahead and tell Claude Code both variables have been set, and let Claude Code run. Okay, so right now, Claude Code is asking us how do we want to proceed. Since this is our first push to Railway, to main, to production, is asking us, do we want to do a pull request, which, would allow us to have the human in the middle to go and review the pull request before actually merging it? Or do we want to just merge to main now? We can do that and push immediately. Since this is our very first push and this is our course 31, we're going to go ahead and merge to main now. That's a safe thing to do because we don't have any code existing there already, right? If you were putting in a feature, you would not want to just merge to main directly and immediately. What you would want to do is go through a pull request and then have someone review it before merging into main. Okay, so now we can see that the deployment actually ran. Entry point running database migration. Schema public is already up to date. Task flow backend service is now online. And there's one thing that Claude Code is alerting us to, and that is that we don't have a public URL for the app that deployed, but we can take a look at that on Railway, and we can see here Railway, which was offline, is now online. Right? And here's the service that's up and running. It says deployment was successful 3 minutes ago from the CLI. Also, we can go to settings, and in order to get a public URL, we can click generate domain right here, which we're going to do. We're going to click that right now. So you see it generates a domain, and then here's the public domain for our app. So we can copy that, open up a new tab, and then here's our app that's running. There's one thing missing from our secrets, and that is we did not include the database URL. And there's one thing to note here. It says offline mode, local storage only. The reason this is showing is because in the Railway service that we set up, which is the to-do service, we need to add a variable so the service knows how to connect to the database that we created in the previous course, the Postgres database for our to-do app, right? So in order to do that, we go into the to-do service by just clicking on it, and then we go to the variables tab. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a new variable here, right? And we're going to call the variable database underscore URL. And then we paste in the value of the database public URL that we talked about in the previous course that we can copy from the Railway database or wherever your Postgres is running. If you're using Neon or Railway, you just need the database public URL. Now, remember, I'm not going to paste this on screen because it includes password and username and very sensitive information. So I'm going to take that off the screen, paste it here, add it so that then you can see that it's been added, right? And what you want to make sure is you paste it in correctly. Okay. So it's database URL, and you should have a new variable there. Once that is in, you then need to deploy again. Okay. Once you update variables in your Railway service or whatever cloud service you're going to use, if you're using platform or just native cloud services, you need to deploy. And so those variables are recognized. When you click deploy, then your service is building. And you'll see in a second when it says ready, right? It'll go back to online and not deploying. Okay, and you can see how quick that happened. Now that we're done, we can refresh. And now we can see that that yellow tag is no longer there. And then we can add a new task. So let's call this one deployment successful. We'll add a new project, and then we'll add a new task. Created database underscore URL variable. We'll give that a due date of that, and we'll say it's high priority. Let's say create instead of created, because that's the task. We'll add that task. There's our new task. It's high priority. Let's see, we can change the user to Alex, and that works successfully. And then we can complete the task. And so everything is working and information is being saved in the database. So what do you have now? Well, you have a public application running on the internet where that you can share this URL with other people. the step that we just walked through automatically created the Railway.json file that's needed to deploy our Docker file to Railway. So that was automatically created when we decided to push to main. That was created in the background. The next thing we need to do is we need to set up monitoring so that our app, we know when our app is run and that sort of thing. So, okay, so since our app doesn't have a health endpoint, we need to go ahead and create one before we can complete the next step. So let's tell Claude Code, yes, I just asked Claude Code, do we have a health endpoint right here? And Claude Code is coming back and saying, yes, no, we don't have a health endpoint. So let's say, yes, create the endpoint. Ideal for monitoring. Okay. So let's go ahead and have Claude Code create our health endpoint for us. And of course, we'll have to redeploy when we do that. Okay, Claude Code is asking us a question. How should the Uptime robot monitor get created, given I can't access your account? Okay, so we're going to do that, right? We'll create the Uptime robot, the Uptime monitor. It says exact settings. Um, you click, right? Should I commit and deploy the Sentry work now? Yes, we should deploy that now. And for uptime, here's what we'll do. We know what our public URL is and the URL that we want Uptime robot to check. So we'll create a new robot. And the monitoring type is HTTP website monitoring. And then we just give the URL, right? And we're going to paste in the URL. And we'll add health to the end. So we can create monitor. That's it. That's all you have to add. And there we go. We can see that our endpoint is up and live. Okay, so Claude Code is done. Health returns 503 when Postgres is unreachable. It's mounted ahead of rate limiter. It says it still needs our public Railway URL. So let's give it that. Here's the public Railway URL. Give that to Claude Code. Okay, so we've got a couple of things that we need to address. See, it says still open. And this is where, working with your agent, you want to pay attention to the feedback it gives us, right? So we need a Sentry DSN variable in Railway. Before we do that, we need to go to Sentry and create our project. Okay, so let's set up Sentry for our app. And in setting up Sentry, we're going to choose Express as the type of app. And we're going to say, alert me on high priority issues only and notify us via email. It's the email that we use to set up the app. And we'll just use the defaults and create our project. And we can see right here, there's a button that allows us to copy the DSN. So we'll copy the DSN. It says DSN copied. And then we'll head back to Railway, which is where we need to actually post our variable, right? So for our to-do CI/CD project in our service, we'll go to variables and we'll create a new variable and we'll call this one Sentry _ DSN. That's the outstanding variable that we needed to add right here, right? Century DSN. So we'll add that to our railway variable, and the value that we copied from Century. Okay, we need to do one other thing after adding that variable. We need to deploy. Okay. Okay. We'll say here's the Century DSN, and we'll give that to Claude Code so it can validate it. Okay, so we can see that Century is configured, up and running, and the two tests that Claude Code sent, you can see it says Century connectivity verification from Claude Code. They are actually physically in the our Century dashboard. So things are up and running. So both our Uptime robot is running, and Century is now capturing issues from the app. Okay, that's the full journey. Local app to live URL with a real pipeline behind it. All right, what's your exercise? Well, ship something to a real URL. Take any app that you've built in this course series. It doesn't have to be the to-do app. Any app from course 8, 9 through 28 or 29. Describe a minimal deployment path, containerize it with Docker, set up a simple CI pipeline, deploy to a free low-cost tier, Railway, Render, or some similar platform, add an update check on the health endpoint, make sure it has a health endpoint, then share the live URL in the Code to Vibe community on our website. Tell us which platform you used and why, and then tell us the one thing the agent got wrong in the pipeline that you had to catch and review. We saw a few of these even in this course. All right, let's lock in what you've learned today. You containerize an app with Docker, describe intent, review the Docker file, and verify that the image runs. You built the CI/CD pipeline. Test first, deploy only on green, Railway auto deploys on push, and pipeline gates it. Review the workflow file like any other code. You deploy to Railway straight from GitHub. The image was built for you. The app listens on the port Railway provides. Don't forget, always ask the cost question. You described infrastructure as code, right? Our push created a railway.json file in our repo, versioned, reviewable, and reproducible. Terraform or Pulumi when you want to move to raw cloud, right? And then we set up monitoring. We set up Uptime Robot and Sentry for errors, latency from day one. The health endpoint as the first signal. And you automate it with GitHub Hooks, deterministic layers around every step in the pipeline. Here's what we haven't talked about yet. What happens when something breaks in production? A real error, a real stack trace, a real user report. In course 32, we go into debugging like a vibe coder. We solve problems conversationally, describing symptoms, sharing logs, letting the agent dissect the issue. That's the module 4 capstone. I'll see you in course 32.